I've always said that the stadium is the symbol of what the Glazers have done to Manchester United in general over the last 20 years. Negligence, rot, decay of something that should be really sacred. And the new stadium that's been announced today will be the symbol of the new United. Corporate, greed, lifeless, soulless, the heart of the club being ripped out. Much like what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is doing now, making cuts, bringing us into a period of austerity. He's having to do that because of the Glazers. The stadium is having to be knocked down because of the Glazers. A logical person will say, we can't change the past. The Glazers have been our owners for the last 20 years. They've done what they've done. This is the consequence of it. And we have to act in the situation that we're in, which is it makes sense to make a new stadium. But football for me isn't a logical game. It's a game that is based on your heart and based on how you feel and your emotions, particularly supporting a football club. And the heart of Manchester United for me is Old Trafford. And it was the best stadium in the world in 2005. I'm biased, but it certainly was in the conversation. And now, 20 years later, because of negligence, rot, decay, it will be knocked down. And the beneficiaries will be the Glazers. It will cost the fans. It will pay for it, the fans. So I'd like to know, given that it's a self-funded stadium apparently, how we're going to afford it. I know how we're going to afford it. They'll take more debt out. And you can't, we are starting from a position of such weakness. We're 14th, 15th in the Premier League. The team is on its arse. The club's on its arse. We're £1 billion in debt. The stadium will cost £2 billion. We're not coming at this from a position of strength. People will reference Arsenal and Tottenham. Arsenal were consistently finishing in the top part of the table when they did their stadium. They had a very good team with a manager who'd been there for years, and it was very settled and it was very stable. Tottenham's a bit different, but Tottenham were doing okay, actually, before the new stadium. Under Pochettino, they were in the top 5 or 6 every season. We are at our worst, lowest ebb in the Premier League era. We have no money. This isn't the time to be considering something that's going to cost us £2 billion. Because what will happen is funds that need to desperately go towards players and the refunding of the team and the restructuring of the team they won't be, will they? They will be redirected elsewhere, because every penny will have to go into that stadium. And the fans will pay for it with increased ticket prices. And when the stadium is built, the ticket prices will be astronomical. And I said this a few weeks ago. Any new stadium that United end up in will be some lifeless, soulless corporate bowl, which is what it looks like. And the tickets will be £100 a ticket. So you, me, other people, it already feels to me like going to Old Trafford right now would be a one-off treat with 2 kids that want to go. I could choose to go more regularly than that, but I'm not doing that. To go to the new stadium just feels out of reach, and I don't know if I'd want to. It's killing local, genuine Manchester United fans' opportunity to go and watch their team. That's what will happen, without a doubt, but that's something to discuss in the future, I suppose. So the announcement was made today that there's going to be a 100,000 seater new stadium. I've seen something saying they're aiming for 5 years, but no later than 2032. Well, if the Glazers involved, that means the earliest will be 2032, because they drag everything out, and it might be 2035 if the Glazers are involved, which for me, that's good, because I don't want us to leave the stadium we're in. But the big question would be, what happens on the pitch whilst all this is going on, first and foremost. and also what happens afterwards when we have to pay, inevitably, we have to pay that back, the money back that we need to build the stadium in the first place. Tottenham have struggled. Arsenal struggled. The teams that have had those big mega stadiums built, they've struggled in the immediate aftermath of building those stadiums. And as I say, they came from a position of strength. Relatively speaking, we're not. I've had to be considered about doing this video because when I initially saw that the stadium will be knocked down and we've got a new stadium, too emotional to do it. And that's a different side of all of this in terms of just personal emotion. But the club, bit by bit by bit, has been systematically killed by the glazers. And this is the final piece of the jigsaw for me that they've just ripped out. They've ripped out the heart of the club. And Old Trafford is sacred. And if there was a reason to knock it down that was born out of, it's nobody's fault, it's just the way it is. It's the architecture of the stadium. It's unable to get planning permission to make it a bigger stadium, etc., etc., which some people are saying is relevant, then fine. But let's have it right. The stadium's been knocked down because it's in a state pretty much of disrepair, because the Glazers have neglected it for 20 years. So it's their fault. 100% it's their fault. Now, I've said before, the legacy damage of the Glazers is so great that recovering from them, if they'd gone, would be difficult. If they'd gone and we had to do this, my hatred towards them would be as much as it is now. But they'd have gone. And a new person coming in, you go, right, okay, they're having to do this probably because of what the Glazers have done, the damage they've done. But Jim Ratcliffe has come in and not only facilitated, as not only having to make up for the mess, but he's facilitated the Glazers to stay. So what we know about this stadium is that when it starts to make money, this is the thing, there's no sun at the end of the rainbow here. There's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for Man United. It will be for the Glazers. 100% that the club will live in austerity for the next 15 years probably, because it's going to take, if it says 5 or 7 years, it's going to take 10. So it's 10 years to build the stadium, 2035. We won't be competitive in that time on the pitch. No chance. There will be no money in that time. So our immediate future is written off. Then you've got 5 to 10 years after the stadium is built, you're paying the money back. Again, very difficult to be competitive. When they start to make money again, the fans might live in some fantasy world where they think Man United will then be great again. Man United won't be great again because all of that money will go in the Glazers' pockets, or certainly most of it. If we don't learn anything else, please learn that. And if you choose then to support it, at least go in with your eyes wide open, because that's what's going to happen. Don't be fooled that this is some kind of bright future for Manchester United, because they don't give a fuck about Manchester United, and they never have done. And on Jim Ratcliffe, have I watched his interview? I won't give him the steam off my piss. What he's done is akin to somebody walking in on a murder scene, clearing it all up for the perpetrator, giving that perpetrator funds, not to lead an honest life outside of crime, but to continue to commit murders of more elaborate nature. That's what he's done. So let's not dress him up to be a hero, because he's not. The lowlights from that interview, for me, I'm not giving him 44 minutes of my time to listen to his waffle with Gary Neville, who he's absolutely in cahoots with on the stadium thing. It's a planned, premeditated, thought out interview where he'll have vetoed all of the questions. It's not a genuine interview. It's spin after a weekend of protests and before an announcement that you're going to rip the stadium out of our current, rip our stadium down. So, but I've seen bits of what he said. I will watch it at some point. I can't bring myself to now. I'm too angry. I'd likely to, if I watched it on my phone, I'd like to throw my phone at somebody. But the lowlights for me are, he used language like, So Gary Neville asked him about the £40,000 donation to the Ex-Players Association, and he said, we've got to look after the pennies and the pounds will take care of itself. And then yet when he was asked about the Glazers getting £1.3 billion from him, and would it not be an idea, given the financial situation of the club, for them to invest some of that money, bear in mind, in the club, bear in mind he'd said the club was close to being bankrupt before he got involved last Christmas. He said throwing money at this will not solve the problem. That's astounding, and an insult to people's intelligence if people swallow that. Astounding statement to make, given what he said about if you look after the pennies, the pounds will take care of itself. Well, there's £1.2 billion worth of pennies sat there in the Glazers' pockets that surely then, we're not talking about throwing money at stuff, we're talking about paying off debt that is crippling the club. So don't insult my intelligence. Don't come across as if it's common sense to do these things like cutting £40,000 worth of charity donation and cutting all the costs and making staff redundant and not giving food to people in the cafeteria, etc. Like that's going to suddenly accrue loads of money when there's £1 billion of debt on the club's name as the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed, and that the club's paying £60 million of interest every year, at least that every year, on that debt. Well, those pennies aren't taking care of themselves, are they? Are you conveniently forgetting that? So it's all you need to know. That interview, and the fact that a day later they announced they're going to knock our stadium down, is everything you need to know. Man United is finished as a football club. The Glazers and Sir Jim Ratcliffe will make money out of Manchester United, but as a competitive football club, we are absolutely finished. And as a fan, I'm too emotional to make any rash decisions, because it would be a rash decision. But I tell you what, my link to this football club, my affection, my passion, my love for this football club is based on everything that's been and nothing that's going to come, and the feeling I have for it. Other than that, I don't recognise it, and it's going to continue to become unrecognisable. And I will always support, let me put it a different way, my football team will always be Manchester United because I love them, and I don't want to, I wouldn't feel that anywhere else. But that's gone. So what I have to accept is, football-wise, the love of my life is gone. I guess, again, I'm sorry to use sad and morbid analogies, like a widow who chooses never to move on. That's what it's like. And yeah, I'll go on, to keep the analogy going, I'll go on dating websites, I'll go and watch FC United. I've been took my son to Stockport County the weekend because he wanted to go. I'll go there, I'll hope they win. Yeah, fine. But my glory days with my football club, I'm not talking about winning, I'm talking about the way I feel and the way I felt I was connected to it, they're gone. And the Glazers have done that. And I have no optimism that any proper protest will be put in place to stop this from happening, or to remove the Glazers and to remove Jim Ratcliffe, because he's in with them, and he deserves to be in with them. It's finished. It's done. The fight's gone. The fans will just accept this. And I've said it many times before, this would never, ever, ever be tolerated at Liverpool. And our fan base has no spine to do what needs to be done, because our club's been ripped away from us, and this is the final piece of it for me. I'm going to do a less emotional video at some point, but these are my initial thoughts and feelings. Glazers out.